There are places in this world that behave like actors. In daylight, they smile. They wave at you with open parking lots, family laughter, ranger maps, guided trails, and gift shops that smell like pinewood souvenirs. Everything feels alive, harmless, safe. But return after darkness settles. Not late, not early, just when the world decides to exhale and the same place stops pretending. That's when it watches you. Before I tell you what happened to me, let me say this clearly. If you believe some places change after dark, you're already smarter than I was. And before this story pulls you in any deeper, if you love true-style horror, psychological dread, and real incident narratives that stay with you long after the screen goes dark, subscribe to the channel, hit like, share, and tell me in the comments which city or country you're watching from right now. Because some stories don't just want to be heard, they want witnesses. I used to live in North Cascadia, a quiet stretch of Washington state, where the city dissolves into old forest faster than you expect. Locals brag about it, how you can drive 10 minutes from downtown and feel like civilization never existed. The crown jewel of the area is Ravenwood State Preserve. Families love it. Hikers swear by it. Wildlife photographers call it a paradise. During the day, Ravenwood feels curated. Paths marked, signs posted, patrol trucks moving slowly like guardians. Kids run ahead of their parents. Couples pose for photos near the overlook cliffs. The air smells clean enough to convince you nothing bad has ever happened there. But what most tourists don't notice is that people leave early. Not because they're told to, because something inside them suggests it. By evening, the crowd's thin. By the time shadows stretch longer than trees, the forest feels occupied. I didn't know any of this back then. In that year, my life had stalled in a way that doesn't feel dramatic until you're trapped inside it. A breakup had hollowed me out. Not the shouting kind, not the cheating kind. Worse, the quiet kind. The kind where someone leaves politely and takes the future with them. I used to travel constantly. Back roads, national parks, forgotten towns. After the breakup, I stayed inside. Days blurred, nights stretched. My friends noticed. One weekend, they showed up unannounced. No speeches, no therapy talk. Just keys tossed onto the table and one sentence. Let's go somewhere green. I refused at first. I always did. They didn't push hard. That's how they won. I agreed on one condition. We wouldn't leave town. Ravenwood State Preserve was the compromise. The forest worked on me faster than I expected. Within minutes of entering, my chest loosened. I noticed small things again. The way sunlight filtered through branches, the distant sound of water moving over stone, the subtle intelligence in the quiet. We spent the day wandering, overlooks, boardwalk trails, lunch near the visitor center. For the first time in months, I laughed without forcing it. Somewhere deep inside, a thought formed. Maybe I don't have to disappear because someone else did. As the sky dimmed, rangers started making their rounds. Not aggressive, just present. Friendly reminders that trails would close soon. My friends packed up quickly. They had work the next day, responsibilities, lives still moving forward. I didn't. I'll catch up, I said. I just want to sit for a bit. They hesitated, then trusted me. That was their mistake, and mine. When the preserve empties, it doesn't go silent. It listens. I stayed near one of the secondary roads, sitting on my motorcycle, helmet beside me, earbuds in. Music filled the space where my thoughts usually clawed. I didn't notice how dark it had become until the screen on my phone went black. No battery. The forest closed in instantly, like it had been waiting for the signal. I checked my bike. The engine coughed, tried, failed. Fuel was low. My mistake again. I told myself not to panic. Panic is loud. Loud attracts attention. That's when I saw her. She stood on the edge of the road ahead, far enough that my brain needed a second to register her as human. She wasn't moving, just present, like she had been placed there. I am not the kind of person who stops for strangers in places like that, especially not when the air feels wrong. I tried the engine again. She raised her hand, not waving, requesting. I rolled closer despite myself. Maybe guilt, maybe habit, maybe the simple human urge to resolve uncertainty. Her face was pale in the low light, not injured, not distressed, just exhausted. "Are you heading out?" she asked. Her voice was calm, too calm. I nodded. Words felt optional. "I've been walking a long time," she said. "I don't think I can keep going." Every warning instinct I had screamed. But exhaustion makes cowards of instincts. She climbed on behind me. The weight felt wrong, not heavy, not light, indeterminate. As we moved, she spoke. Said she'd come earlier with friends. Said they left without her. Said she waited, thinking someone would return. Her story had gaps. I didn't ask about them. The bike faltered again deep within the preserve. I knelt to check the rear, my hands shaking despite my efforts to stay steady. That's when I noticed something that snapped every nerve awake, her stance behind me. It wasn't human. I didn't look long. Long enough was too long. Cold spread through my chest. Not fear, not shock. Recognition. Some truths don't announce themselves. They arrive fully formed. She rested a hand on my shoulder. "I can help," she said softly. I forced my voice to work. "No." The engine caught suddenly, like it had been waiting for my refusal. I didn't hesitate. I rode. The forest chased me, not with sound, with pressure. I felt her presence even when I couldn't see her. Closer than air, closer than thought. When I risked a glance behind, there was nothing solid, only distortion, like heat rising from asphalt. But something was there, keeping pace. My lungs burned. My hands ached. Every survival instinct screamed one truth: do not let it stay with you. Near the outer gate, the pressure vanished. I stopped shaking only when I saw the ranger. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he looked at me the way doctors do when they already know the diagnosis. "You're lucky," he said. "Most people aren't." Then he told me the rest. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared in the obvious way. No shaking hands, no cold sweat, no replaying the moment over and over like a broken recording. It was worse. I felt noticed, like something had followed me out of Ravenwood State Preserve and decided to wait quietly until I let my guard down. The ranger's words kept looping in my head. "You're lucky. Most people aren't." I asked him what he meant. He didn't answer right away. He leaned against the gatehouse railing, eyes fixed on the dark stretch of road behind me, as if he expected someone, or something, to step out at any moment. "You didn't offer her help willingly," he finally said. "That matters." I didn't tell him about the moment when I almost did, about how close I came to saying yes before something inside me recoiled. He waved me off after that, told me to go home, told me not to come back after dark. I promised him I wouldn't. I meant it. In the days that followed, life tried to return to normal. Work emails, traffic noise, grocery stores lit too brightly, friends texting to check if I was okay. I told them I was fine. That was the first lie. The second lie was telling myself the encounter had ended at the gate. Because sometimes, late in the evening, when my apartment was quiet and the windows reflected nothing but darkness, I felt the same pressure I'd felt on the road, like the air itself was leaning closer, not touching, waiting. I started hearing about Ravenwood again, not directly, not in conversations meant for me, just mentions. A coworker complaining about a closed hiking trail, a local forum post asking why certain access roads were suddenly restricted, a missing dog notice pinned to a cafe board near the freeway. Every time the preserve came up, my stomach tightened. I avoided looking it up, avoided maps, avoided news. Avoidance feels like control until it doesn't. It was the ranger who broke the silence. He called me 3 days later. I didn't give him my number. That should have scared me more than it did. "Can you come down to the station?" he asked. "We need to talk. In person." His voice wasn't urgent. It was resigned. I drove there just before nightfall, the sky bruised purple and gray. The preserve entrance looked different in daylight, harmless again, almost embarrassed by what it became when the sun was gone. The ranger's name was Calder Rowe. He'd worked Ravenwood longer than anyone else on staff, not because he loved it, because he understood it. "There are places," he told me, sliding a folder across the table, "that don't let go of what happens inside them." The folder contained reports, old ones, decades worth, not official incident reports, personal accounts, statements that never made it into public records, people who claimed they'd met someone inside the preserve who shouldn't have been there. Descriptions varied, but the pattern didn't. Always alone, always stranded, always asking for help. Those who accepted never filed statements. Those who refused survived. Barely. "She doesn't attack everyone," Calder said. "Only the ones who hesitate." I asked him what she was. He shook his head. "She's not a ghost in the way people like to imagine. She's closer to a memory that learned how to move." The story, as Calder told it, began years before Ravenwood was what it is now. Back when the land was still being negotiated, development plans half drawn, access roads carved through old growth forest without understanding what they were cutting into. A group of friends came through during that transition period. Locals, young, careless, confident the world would keep accommodating them. One of them didn't make it out. The details were inconsistent. Some said she was injured. Some said she was left behind after an argument. Some said she chose to stay when the others panicked and fled. What mattered wasn't how she died. What mattered was how long she waited. "She learned something out there," Calder said quietly. "About people. About what they do when it's inconvenient to care." I thought about the way she spoke to me. Calm, practiced, as if she'd had time, far too much time, to refine her approach. "Why me?" I asked. Calder met my eyes. "Because you were already broken." That night after I left the station, I felt the pull again. Not toward the preserve, toward the idea of it. Trauma doesn't just frighten you, it invites you back under the lie of understanding. You convince yourself that if you return, if you look closer, you'll gain control. I told myself I needed closure. That was the third lie. I didn't go back immediately. I waited, watched, researched. There were patterns, disappearances near secondary roads, reports of stalled vehicles with no mechanical explanation, witnesses who described the same sensation, a presence riding with them long after it should have been gone. One detail haunted me. Everyone who survived described the moment they almost helped. Almost That hesitation was the line. A week later, Calder called again. Another incident. A cyclist this time. Found near the perimeter road, alive but incoherent, repeating the same phrase over and over. She asked me to stop. Calder didn't ask me to come back. He didn't have to. I returned to Ravenwood just before the preserve officially closed. I told myself it would be different in daylight. That knowledge was armor. It wasn't. The forest felt tighter, more alert, like it recognized me. I parked near the same road, walked instead of riding, wanted my hands free, wanted to feel grounded. I didn't go deep. I didn't need to. She was already there, not visible at first. Just a shift in awareness, a narrowing of options, the sense that every path led back to the same point. When I saw her, she looked almost normal. Almost. "You came back," she said. I didn't answer. "I knew you would," she continued. "You're not like the others." Her eyes searched my face, not for fear, but for permission. "I don't need help," she said. "I just need company." That's when I understood the truth Calder had circled without naming. She wasn't hunting. She was waiting to be chosen. I stepped back. Her expression changed. Not anger, disappointment. The forest responded instantly. Branches groaned. The air thickened. Paths twisted subtly, disorienting without moving. She didn't chase me. She didn't have to. I left Ravenwood that day knowing something fundamental had shifted. She had seen me clearly, and I had refused again. That night, I dreamed of the road inside the preserve. But this time, I wasn't riding away. I was standing still, and she was walking toward me. Slow, patient, certain. After I returned from Ravenwood the second time, I stopped pretending my life could return to what it had been. The forest had learned me. That's the closest word I can use. Learned. Not followed, not haunted. Studied. Once you understand that, everything changes. Fear becomes secondary. What replaces it is something far worse. Anticipation. I didn't tell anyone I went back, not my friends, not Calder, not even myself, not honestly. I framed it as observation, research, proof. But deep down, I knew the truth. She had spoken to me directly, and I had responded. That alone put me on a very short list. The dreams intensified. They weren't chaotic or abstract. No strange symbols. No warped memories. Just repetition. The road. The trees leaning inward. Her silhouette ahead. Always distant. Always moving at the same pace, no matter how fast or slow I tried to go. In the dreams, the forest didn't threaten me. It offered me time. Time to decide. I woke up each morning with the sensation that I was late for something I couldn't name. Calder noticed the change before I said anything. "You went back," he said flatly when I finally met him again. I didn't deny it. He closed his eyes for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose like someone bracing against an incoming wave. "She knows your face now," he said. "That makes things complicated." I asked him why the rules mattered so much, why hesitation was the dividing line. He hesitated himself before answering. "Because she isn't trying to take people," he said. "She's trying to replace something." That sentence lodged itself deep. Replace what? Calder took me to the archive room behind the ranger offices. It wasn't official, more like a quiet storage space where inconvenient histories were left to gather dust. Maps, old journals, audio transcripts. He pulled out a personal log written by a ranger who'd retired years ago. One entry stood out. She doesn't force them. She waits until they decide they are already lost. The moment they believe help is impossible, she steps closer. That was the rule. She didn't prey on strength. She preyed on surrender. Calder explained what most people never saw. Ravenwood wasn't just forest. It sat on a convergence of old access routes, abandoned development corridors, and forgotten service roads. Paths people used briefly and then erased from memory. The perfect place for someone to vanish. She learned from the land, Calder said, and the land learned from us. The woman, whatever she was now, had become part of the Preserve's subconscious. Not a spirit bound to a single tragedy, but a process. A question. Will you stop? Will you help? Will you choose me over yourself? Those who answered yes never made it back. Those who answered no lived, but not unchanged. I was still alive, which meant the process wasn't finished. Things began happening far from Ravenwood. That was when I realized escape wasn't measured in distance. One evening, while stopped at a quiet intersection near my apartment, I felt it again. That pressure, that narrowing of awareness. Someone stood near the sidewalk. A woman. Same posture, same stillness, different face. I didn't stop. I drove on, heart hammering, every muscle screaming at me to look back. I didn't. That was the second refusal outside the forest. The dreams worsened after that. She wasn't angry. She was persistent. I started writing everything down. Every sensation, every near encounter, every moment the world felt subtly staged to test me. Patterns emerged. She appeared only when I was alone. Only when escape felt inconvenient. Only when the environment suggested delay rather than danger. Never dramatic, never overt, always reasonable. That was her strength. The final escalation began with a message left on my door. No name, no address, just a folded piece of paper. You don't have to keep running. The handwriting wasn't familiar, but the message was. I didn't sleep that night. I went to Calder at dawn. She's moving beyond the preserve, I said. Or I am. He nodded grimly. That happens sometimes, he said. When someone survives long enough. I asked him how it ended. Calder didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "It ends when the question is answered." There was one place inside Ravenwood Calder had never shown me. A stretch of land excluded from maps. Closed not for safety, but for silence. They don't want people asking why it's there, he said. It was where she had waited longest. Not where she died, where she hoped. We entered just before the light shifted. The forest in that transitional state, where shapes lose definition but aren't fully claimed by darkness. The air felt heavier there. Old. Unmoved. She'll come, Calder said quietly. She always does. I asked him why he was helping me. He didn't look at me when he answered. Because she asked me once, he said, and I almost stopped. She arrived without sound, not walking, not emerging, simply present. Her face was clearer now than it had ever been. Not monstrous, not burned, not distorted. Human. Tired. You keep refusing, she said to me. Do you know what that costs? I didn't answer. She turned her gaze to Calder. He flinched, but did not move. That's the rule you taught yourself, she said. Witnesses don't count. I understood then. She wasn't bound to place. She was bound to choice, and she needed someone to choose freely. No coercion, no chase, no force, only consent. You came back because you think saying no makes you strong, she said. But strength isn't refusal, it's staying. The forest leaned in. Every instinct urged me to step forward, to end the waiting, the pressure, the endless testing. That was the final temptation. Relief disguised as surrender. I met her eyes. No, I said. The word landed like a stone dropped into deep water. The forest recoiled. She stepped back, not furious, not broken, resigned. "You'll never stop seeing me," she said. "I know," I replied, "but you won't have me." She faded, not vanishing, not dissolving, withdrawing, like a tide that knows it will return. After that night, the dreams changed. She no longer approached. She stood far away, watching, waiting for the day I might answer differently. Calder retired shortly after. He never returned to Ravenwood. Neither did I. But sometimes, when I'm driving alone and the road stretches longer than expected, I feel the question surface again. Soft, patient, unavoidable. I used to believe that surviving something meant it was over. That if you made the right choice, if you said the right word at the right moment, you earned an ending. I was wrong. Survival doesn't close a story. It only changes the way the story follows you. After Calder retired, Ravenwood State Preserve slipped out of my daily thoughts. Not completely. Nothing like that ever truly leaves. But enough that I could pretend I'd regained control. I moved apartments, changed my route to work, sold the motorcycle. I told myself these were practical decisions. They weren't. They were offerings. I stopped putting myself in situations where the world could ask me the same question again. I avoided empty roads, avoided pauses, avoided stillness, because stillness was where she lived. And for a while it worked. Months passed without incident. No sightings, no notes, no pressure in the air. The dreams faded into something less vivid, less demanding. I began to believe that refusing her twice, 3 times, if you counted the night outside the forest, had been enough. That belief was the most dangerous thing I ever allowed myself to hold. The invitation came quietly, an email forwarded through 3 people I barely knew, a volunteer outreach program, community assistance, temporary support roles. The wording was careful, thoughtful, human, helping those who need it most. I stared at the screen longer than I should have. The timing felt wrong, not ominous, not dramatic, just aligned, like a final piece sliding into place. I told myself that growth meant not letting fear dictate my choices, that refusing every opportunity to help was just another form of running. So I replied. The work placed me on the outskirts of town, areas people pass through without really seeing, transitional spaces, long roads between destinations, shelters set back from main streets, temporary housing surrounded by undeveloped land. On my first night shift, the familiar pressure returned, not strong, just enough to remind me it had never gone away. I felt it when the facility emptied, when conversations thinned, when responsibility settled onto my shoulders alone. I remembered Calder's words. Witnesses don't count. That was the rule I'd hidden behind. But what happens when you choose to be present? She didn't appear right away. She waited. Days turned into weeks. Nothing overt, just subtle rearrangements of circumstance, equipment malfunctioning at inconvenient moments, vehicles refusing to cooperate when I needed them to. Each incident came with the same underlying suggestion. Stay a little longer. Someone might need you. I resisted, until the night I didn't. The call came late in my shift. A report of someone stranded near the perimeter road that bordered the old, undeveloped land outside the city limits. No emergency vehicles available. No backup nearby. Just me. I remember sitting in my car afterward, hands on the steering wheel, aware of the choice forming before it fully surfaced. This wasn't Ravenwood. This wasn't the forest. This was responsibility. I drove. The road felt wrong immediately. Not threatening, not hostile. familiar. That's what terrified me. The trees weren't as dense, but they leaned the same way, subtly inward, as if listening. The air pressed against the windshield with that same patient weight. I slowed near the reported location. That's when I saw her. She stood beside the road, exactly where someone would stand if they didn't want to alarm you. Visible, non-threatening, exhausted. Her face wasn't the same. It didn't need to be. "You always come back," she said. I didn't answer. She took a step closer. "I don't need help," she continued. "I just need you to stay." The words landed differently this time, because they were true. She didn't need assistance. She needed presence, a willing pause, a choice made without fear. I realized then that refusal had never been the victory I thought it was. It had only delayed the moment when the question would be asked without obvious danger attached. I felt the weight of every near miss, every escape, every rationalization I'd used to survive. I saw the pattern clearly now. She didn't want victims. She wanted replacements. People who would choose to remain when the world moved on. People who would become part of the waiting. Behind me, the city glowed faintly, distant, indifferent. Ahead, the road stretched on, unclaimed. She watched me without impatience. This was the most honest moment we'd ever shared. I understood the final rule then. Refusal only worked when fear made the choice for you. This time, there was no fear, only responsibility. And that was the trap. I took a step back, not away from her, away from the moment. "No," I said, not loudly, not defiantly, simply. Her expression shifted. Not anger, not disappointment, understanding. "That answer won't hold forever," she said. "It never does." I met her gaze. "It holds today." The pressure eased. She stepped aside. The road opened. I drove away without looking back. I resigned from the program the next morning. Not dramatically. No explanations. Just a quiet withdrawal from spaces where I could be asked to stay. I changed my life again. But this time, not to avoid her. To understand the cost. Here is the truth I don't tell people when they ask why I live the way I do now. Why I don't linger. Why I don't stop when the road feels endless. Why I help only when help does not require disappearance. The question still comes. It always will. She is not a monster. She is not a ghost. She is what happens when waiting outlives hope. And one day, maybe not soon, maybe not where you expect, you'll feel it too. That subtle suggestion to pause, to stay, to choose stillness over motion. When that day comes, remember this. Saying no doesn't end the story. It only means you get to keep walking. For now, if you are still here, if you listen to this entire story, then you already understand something most people don't. Some places don't want you lost. They want you willing. If you want more true-style horror stories like this, stories that don't scream, but wait, subscribe, like, share, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now. Because the question isn't finished, it's just patient.